Our next speaker is Helen Molden. And Helen, I can't see you on the screen.
Oh, hi.
Hi. And Helen's paper is AI, Automation and Psychotherapy, a proposed model for losses and gains in the automated therapeutic encounter. So over to you, Helen.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, really nice to meet everyone today and hear, just sharing the conversation really about what is such an emergent and exciting, and I guess the word so far has been ambivalent, ambiguous area. I guess I'm here today to maybe try and put a bit of structure to that ambivalence, to give everyone who is a clinician and a researcher and a therapist a way in to think about how technology has come along and really kind of swamped our profession along with everything else. It's here. I mean, my view is it's here. It's not going away. There's lots of things that are exciting about it, but there's also obviously a great many ethical and developmental and challenges around therapist client fit, lots of things. So what I was interested in doing during the COVID lockdown and the whole push towards digital therapies was to really think about this in regard to another field that I work in and have interest in, which is the human factors and ergonomics field, which is all about how humans integrate with systems. So I'm both an integrative psychotherapist and a counselling psychologist. It's probably worth saying my background is in primarily working with clients who've gone through some kind of chronic or acute health condition, and working with them in terms of recovery and acceptance, and just getting to a place where what matters most for them in life, what they value, that they can achieve that once again or get to that state. So I'm very interested in issues around fatigue, attentional issues, those kinds of things which often we struggle with when we're very unwell. So I left the NHS in 2021, having worked during the pandemic online for the NHS, and I began to think about really in terms of what are some of the losses and gains for this technology that we were all suddenly, introduced. We had to use, didn't we? There was no two ways about it because of our disembodied, the necessity to be disembodied from each other and everything that entailed. So I've come up with this paper, which essentially is around losses and gains in an automated therapeutic encounter. And it borrows a lot of theory and application from the human factors field, because this is a field which has been looking at and working with what they call HMI, so human machine interaction, or HCI, human computer interaction, for decades, primarily around safety critical areas such as healthcare, but particularly nuclear defense, transportation. And I was just thinking, well, gosh, we need some kind of structure. We need some way of thinking about these issues, because here I am doing things by Zoom. I know that other people are doing IAPT programs that are, to use Trisha's manualized type interesting piece that she was talking about there. And what is happening to the essence of the therapeutic encounter? What's going on in there? Are we losing things that are essential to what it is to do therapy? The things that, as Trisha was saying, emerge in the moment. So this paper is a sort of start, really. It's just a model to hang discussion around, to think about the tensions, to think specifically about the losses and gains. So this is what I came up with, doing a bit of reviewing. Guess I've been interested in this as a field for quite some time. The photographs today are largely taken from an exhibition I went to with my sons on robots in the Science Museum in 2014, which was a really good exhibition. And here you can see we've got a robot who can play the trumpet. Now, I think that many people would argue, and in my lit review in the article, I go into this in more detail, around the fact that psychotherapy is a highly complex and nuanced entity. We do things like comforting clients during a crisis, managing risk, the things that Manrika Rose et al. Point out here. Is this even is it just a challenge too far? Should we even be asking AI to join us in this work, or actually is it something completely different? So that's one of the questions I'm just going to leave there for the moment, and I know we'll talk about throughout the day, I'm sure. This is the model that I came up with, which, as I say, owes a massive debt to the human factors field and specifically to the work of Fleischmann et al. In 2011, because they did a lot of work around the field of transportation. And if you go and look at the Society of Automotive Engineers in America, you will see that they have their regulations around autonomous vehicles, which clearly is very often in the news and growing in their presence in our lives. They're all based around a similar system, so level 1 to sometimes level 6. This idea that we start with the human to human, if you like, contact within the therapy world in level 1, and we move right down towards level 5, which is fully automated. So I think some people were saying earlier that they can't even conceive of that as an idea. I guess my model, or this model, is suggesting these are things we need to conceive of because they are only just around the corner. If we've got different versions of AI and they're intimating that by 2035 the AI may well be of the same level of consciousness or intelligence as us. And I've sat in conference rooms where people have asked academics working in this field, how worried are you? Are you worried about this? And they now profess to being, some of them, to being genuinely worried. So I think this is an area that we as psychotherapists should be engaged in as well. I haven't got time to go into all the levels in great detail now, but obviously encourage everyone to read the article as and when that comes out, which I think is towards the end of November. But what I was looking at trying to do is give an example, and as I go through in the article, I give an example of each of the levels and pull out some of the tensions. And one of the ways I do that is by using 5 pivots taken from the research around what makes an effective therapeutic relationship. And that's something that we all know here from looking at the research from Borden in 1979 around bonds, through to confiding healing settings in Lasker et al. 2014 and so forth. So I just take those as a critical lens through which to view these levels, which again, for purpose of time now, I'm just going to give a few hints around that, I guess. So level 1 is 2 humans in the room or indeed on screen, actually. But essentially the content here is the content may be AI mediated, but the therapy is as what we would call traditional therapy. And then we move through the levels. So level 2, we're getting more towards use of algorithms, maybe therapist client fit, say, how we're introduced with each other, onboarding mechanisms, ethical issues around perhaps data privacy, data leaking, that kind of thing. And I would argue already at level 2, I would say that we're already beginning to potentially lose something in the therapeutic encounter, because already by level 2, by succeeding some of the things that we might do for ourselves, such as taking a full history, instead we may ask the client to fill in an automated form, that we're already beginning to lose the ability to perhaps look for what isn't there as much as what is there, which I think is one of the key things, skills or presences that we offer as psychotherapists. So that's level 2. Level 3, I find this a really interesting level because this is a really great blended approach. We're still having sessions, so you're still getting the neurobiological and the attachment benefits of an interaction with another human being. But we're also getting the benefits of potentially a really personalized AI approach. So this is a picture here of a lady in Japan, and she's communicating with her robotic seal made by the company Paro, which has been personalized just for her. And we know from the research that has been done in such studies that actually people are more likely to once they've interacted with such a pet, robotic pet, they're more likely to want to engage socially with other people that they live with, to engage with therapy, and so on and so forth. So there's some real benefits here. Level 3 also involves perhaps some of the more manualized CBT, heavily CBT, I would imagine, type things, such as I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's IESO, which is run by the NHS. So it's very personalized, but you're still having therapeutic sessions with a human being. By level 4, things are quite different. You can see here we're reaching to an advanced stage of AI and minimal human contact. Just to give you the analogy, in the autonomous vehicle world, by this stage, this is the stage which very often the car manufacturers advertising suggests, hints that it's level 4, but actually they're really operating at a level 2, level 3, because they need a human supervisor to jump in if there's an issue. But we do have self-driving buses, which launched a couple of weeks ago in Edinburgh on the Forth Bridge, and that's level 4, level 5. And you have a human supervisor who will come in every now and then just to take over in issues of risk or crisis or the ethical side of things. And we know from the buses that actually what seems to be happening is the human supervisors are suffering from quite a lot of fatigue and boredom and taking their eye off the job. So that's something we might want to think about at these levels for us as therapists. And here's a little bit of a workup I've just done for level 4. Here you'd be meeting largely personalized software, but meeting your therapist, real human therapist, to check in with you every sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Then level 5, we're fully automated. So the human therapist, no contact with the client at this stage. To my knowledge, this doesn't exist anywhere in the world at the moment. Therapist is obviously available, AI therapists available 24/7 whenever you want. And at this level, I think there are 5 key effective working relationship sort of pivots. They're really beginning to suffer potentially. We're losing out on the neurobiological and co-regulated aspects in the therapeutic encounter. But maybe we are gaining here in terms of the fact that it's 24/7, the fact that we've got, perhaps it's just a good enough therapist here who's creating a new type of space for people who are used to, as Gail Simon was saying, that you know, are used to being human tech intertwined. So this is a very valuable, helpful, and amenable way for them to interact. So maybe not, maybe it doesn't look like that with the photograph that I put here. I shouldn't really be prejudicing things, but anyway, I'm trying to maintain and offer a neutral platform. I will, however, state that there will be glitches, and they call AI hallucinating, which can be extremely serious in our profession. We have had instances of bots recommending, you know, issues around suicidal intent, you know, not challenging that, not clearly not being able to manage it. So this is a very serious issue for us as practitioners. I guess the main point I wanted to make today, actually, and I go into these points in greater detail in the article around trust and empathy, is actually around the being met that we've already hinted at today, which is this collapse from the I, thou, this constitutive caring moment that we hopefully all, you know, if that comes along in our sessions, that's of huge value to clients and to us as practitioners. I would say that at levels 4 and 5, you know, and even level 3, there's a real danger that you've got this collapse from the I, thou into the I, it. And therefore, what is it that's actually going on? It may be valuable, it may be helpful. I think Del was talking about having an AI companion, maybe rather than an AI therapist. You know, maybe that's what we're conceiving of here. And what is potentially dangerous is you've got lots and lots of services being rolled out because if I go back to my model, because the benefits here are massive for service providers. You know, it's high client throughput, low cost, potentially high automation once you've set it up, the costs are there. And you've reduced therapist burnout, because actually by level 5, the human therapist is barely there, barely part of the proceedings. So coming up to the end, really, what I wanted to do was just to say, well, what do we want to retain? This is the idea of this is a model so that we can kind of think, where do we want to join as a practitioner? What would we want to bring in? Do we want to be using robotics hardware or robotic softwares to enhance our psychoeducation around social anxiety? Do we want to be using VR? All of these are good things with often really helpful research, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that today. At what level do they fit in, both for you as a researcher and as a clinician? But bearing in mind that the client, if it's pure and a pure AI interaction, or almost all AI, at any point the client perhaps loses something of the existential moral hazard. They can just switch off at the touch of a button, which when you're staring at your therapist, certainly face to face in the room, it's much harder to be cancelled. And you're also sitting there as human beings facing the universal experience of that, which is, you know, essentially mortality and so forth. And I think much is potentially lost in that too. But there are also gains to be had. So maybe we could see this in the or at least I would suggest we see this in the vein of great pioneers throughout the 20th century who took the latest in technology to try and understand human connection, not necessarily in the therapy world, actually. We'd look at people like perhaps Walt Disney and Jim Henson, people who were really looking at how we connect and educate and inform and just create connection, and how we do that for good effect in our families as well, and how people can benefit from that. And I think there's much to be said around that. It's already here. You know, my teenager, at any rate, is pretty intertwined with every single aspect of technology. So it's already here. And as practitioners, the challenge is where, how, which level, where do you want to join? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that okay in terms of time? I'm slightly lost.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Helen. Yes, it's a bit strange, isn't it, this bit online? It's like when you're in the room, people usually clap or something, don't they?
Yeah, it's that. It is
clap.
Yeah, the lack. Well, the
lack. I think you should. Thank
you. Right. Any questions? There's time for questions.
Yes, yeah, we've got a few minutes for questions. Yeah.
There we are.
I was just going to ask, I was really curious about, I think something that we'd said before as well, about this idea of 24 hours a day, constant access, never a lack of, you know, I wondered about the implications on resilience and dependency for a person, that they go to that 24 hours a day. And I wondered about whether actually maybe because I think sometimes the fact that you have to, you know, maybe wait a couple of days or a week before your next session, something happens in that space and that time. And I was really curious about your thoughts on how that might change your interface with a client and a therapist.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's one of the biggest things, is the move away from the you know, the traditional weekly 50-minute, whatever that traditional model is for you. I think certainly within the NHS, I mean, latterly I was working within a pediatric psychology framework, and we were on the wards and couldn't even necessarily grab a room space. So I guess what I would say is I'm very open to that in terms of therapy, in terms of, as I say, using actually a robotic pet or something like that as a like almost like a Winnicottian transitional object, with certainly in the pediatric context, but not necessarily, could be also for adults from all different kinds of backgrounds and issues that they're bringing. Where I would have concerns, and it sounds like maybe share your concern, is this idea of what is that doing for the other? You know, if our other is the digital, if our other is there 24/7, how does that reflect in our own identity, in our own sense of self? Because we need space. We need the space, whether that's a week, whether that's 48 hours or whatever. We need the space between ourselves and the other that we see ourselves mirrored in and reflected in. And I actually think that is a huge, massive consideration for our young people's brains in terms of how they're being, I would argue, maybe even fragmented. So actually, weirdly, having something available at any time seems to make people split their time. So attentionally, it seems to make it harder for them to concentrate on things, because, you know, there's so much available. It's there all the time. So I don't know what that would be like if you had your AI bot at level 5.
Right.
And what do other people think?
Do you think it's a bit like a mother who never goes to sleep and never puts you down? It's always there.
Yes, absolutely. Really good analogy, because actually you need the good enough, don't you? And it's going to be, I don't know, is it going to be intrusive? Is it going to be overwhelming? Is it going to be suffocating? It's going to be many of those things psychoanalytically, yeah.
Yeah, something about space to digest, actually.
Yeah. But wouldn't some of these systems at least be sort of designed with the help of therapists?
Well,
at
you'd like to
all,
think
because I'm
so.
thinking, why wouldn't there in that case be that we would only be able to log in with our therapist once a week or at a certain time? I mean, just because we have it all in technology, I'm thinking there can still be a lot of regulations around that particular time. There's nothing saying that everything has to be totally open.
Well,
I
there's
think
nothing saying it, but it's kind of happened anyway, hasn't it? Because it's, you know, the commercial giants are in charge, and we're in the guinea pig era, or at least this is what I say. I have a 16-year-old, I have a 19-year-old. I think they are very much in the guinea pig era, and noting the difference between the 4 academic years between them is fascinating in terms of their brain development and so forth. These are issues which really, they're not going to be worked out. You know, it's going to be the next decade, isn't it? So in the meantime, if there's money to be made from it, my guess is it's going to be offered. Yes, absolutely, I would agree. We need a good amount of regulation. We need a high amount of therapeutic input. Do I see that necessarily happening? I don't know. You know, I'd be guided by others in their experience of that, because this is, you know, this is one piece of research.
Helen,
I think we need to
okay.
start bringing this to a close. Daniel, sorry about that.
No
But
problem.
hopefully the discussion can carry on in the groups in a minute. But anyway, thank you to all the morning speakers, and I'm sure lots of things that they've been talking about are going to now get chewed over further.